Peggle. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ferret64 with me, your host, Yemmy the Ferret. Ferret64 is, of course, the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and so much more. We got a nice, healthy episode for you today. We got some new games I've been playing this week. We got a event to talk about as well, and some news and other stuff. So sit back, relax, maybe grab a bag of popcorn, I don't know, whatever you do. Yeah, don't sit back and relax if you're driving, though. Make sure you keep your eyes on the road, okay? But yes, make sure you're safe while you're listening to the podcast. I don't want to be the one to cause an accident. Also, I think I'll be uploading the video version of the podcast to Spotify as well, so you can now watch it there if you so desire. Just don't kill your data if you have limited data, okay? Anyway, let's go ahead and start off this episode with what have I been playing this past week? Wanted to get a jump start this week on editing the podcast, so I am recording this at nighttime, so we might have a different vibe. I don't know. I just got back from seeing Mickey 17, and I'm full of popcorn. I just feel like I can't really go to sleep yet, or at least go to bed and start to get ready to go to sleep. So I'm recording the podcast, so we'll see how it goes. This might be trashed in the morning. I don't know. I'm going to start off this episode with the most recent release that I've been playing, and that is Split Fiction. Split Fiction is the new game from Josef Fares, and it's about two girls who are rising authors, or they want to become authors. They want to be published. I guess that's the main thing. They are authors, but they want to be published. So this company that they are, I guess, doing some revolutionary thing for, it's very early on revealed, like in like the second cutscene, that they are trying to steal their ideas. So instead of them just going through like their own book, it ends up being that the company is like sifting through their entire memory bank of their stories. So instead of just being in one story that you submitted to them to reenact or live through, which I guess would maybe help with the writing process, I don't know. Now every single one of your stories has been sent to this big computer that they own or that they use to harvest the books, and then they'll steal the ideas and publish them themselves and give no credit to the authors. So right away, like, you know, the story is a good jumping off point. I do feel like they maybe could have kept it a secret that the company is like the big bad who is stealing people's work. They could have like maybe built up to that a little bit more, perhaps. I think it's a serviceable story so far, and it does run into some tropes, though, mainly being that, like, okay, our two protagonists are at odds with one another. They don't know each other. They gotta learn about each other, and one of them doesn't want to talk about their past. Ooh, very mysterious. So it is a bit tropey, but like I said, I think the story is serviceable. It's a serviceable bridge or walkway for the game to move the scenes along. I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't play these games for the story, but I think that these lines of games that Josef Fares has worked on have been very story heavy, and they've also been pretty good thematically. You started off with Brothers, Tale of Two Sons, which had a good story to it. A Way Out, even though I didn't think that game was amazing by any stretch of the imagination, the story flowed pretty well, and I thought that the game itself was good enough. And then It Takes Two was a good time. I really enjoyed that one. I thought the story was pretty tight on that one, minus the romance book. I thought the romance book was just like you could have just not had him in the game. I thought he was pretty annoying. Split Fiction kind of rides that line of like being a good enough story, but not like being super interesting. And hopefully it will kick up as it goes on, because right now you're just kind of going through some of the various tropes that you would see in most games like this, where you have two unlikely people, a sci-fi writer and a fantasy writer, joined together to take down the conglomeration, this big business. But I mean, who wants me to talk about the story for 30 minutes here? The gameplay is where it's at, and the gameplay is very good in this game. It has. I should say I was worried that it was not going to live up to It Takes Two in a way where, because It Takes Two changed up the gameplay so much. It felt like every like 15 minutes or so you were just swapping to something different, and something new was happening, or you were doing something massively different than you were before. And even though they gave you, like, one person had you could throw the nails into the wall, and the other person had I forget what the other. It's been a while since we played it, but the other person had something to work with those. It kind of like gave you that idea. You worked with it a little bit, or maybe even a lot, and then it moved on to something else. Split Fiction seems to be a real rapid fire. So, but also it does still have like an overarching thing that you're using. So, one of the first sequences of the game is that one person has this sword that she can throw and then teleport to like the spot that she threw it. And the other person has a magnetized whip that she can use to pick things up and throw or do whatever. And it starts off with like, hey, this is how it works. Throw things, teleport, work together to get through this area. Very quickly, though, it goes, oh, okay, so now you're going to be riding on a motorcycle, and the person in the back seat, the girl who can throw things, you're at the lasso like guys out of their motorcycles and throw them, while the other person drives around like an obstacle course, essentially. Later on, you're going through like an anti-gravity section where one person with the sword is anti-gravitating to different parts of the map, and the other person is kind of like walking the straight line. But the way that the framing is set up it's very interesting, because one person's on the top, one person's on the bottom, running along the same path at the same time, and it's just a very cool visual. And then also throughout that same level, you're using the same mechanics, but now you're jumping from hover car to hover car in the sci-fi story on like a cosmic highway, and you're also battling some enemies here and there and throwing cars back. And even the boss fights have been very fun so far. Starts you off with like a basic guy who kind of reminded me of Juggernaut from the X-Men, and he has like this big hammer. And it's kind of, it's pretty basic. Dodges attacks, hit him at the right time. He drops his hammer, and then one person, the person who has the grapple hook, the grapple whip, uses that to knock the helmet guy, the big helmet guy. But then later on, there's another boss that was pretty crazy. It was like this parking garage attendant, and it was like shooting laser beams everywhere and launching cars at you and stuff. And one person had to go inside to like disable to knock some nodes loose, and then the other person had to grapple them and throw them. So it was a very cool one. It had a lot of fun to that one. And then finally, the final boss of that section was like this giant three-legged walker, mechanical walker type thing that then transformed into a tank afterwards, or reverse that. It was a tank, and then it turned into a giant three-legged walker. And it just the game it's really rapid fire with these different things. Like it doesn't hang on something for as long as A Way Out did or It Takes Two did. It really just kind of boom, boom, boom keeps shit going, and it makes it a very interesting playthrough. And sometimes I do wish, like, okay, I wish that we had done more with the bombs, because at this one moment you throw like a bomb at the or you hit a bomb at the person with the whip, and they just grab it and throw it, and you just break some windows and then you move on, and you don't see bombs for the rest of that section. I'm sure maybe they'll bring it back eventually. I don't know. They don't usually do that sort of thing. But it's very interesting that they just kind of were like, okay, well, this is the idea, and it's gone. And you did it, and it's gone. And like I said, it doesn't really hang on anything for too long. I think the longest we were going through a section was like a 10 minute like section where we were jumping across those cars, or we were driving the motorcycle, or one person was gunning down the troops while one person was flying like a hover car. Like it's one of those games where it's very boom, 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 very fast. Doesn't want to stick on anything for too long, and some people might not like that, but me personally, I've been playing a lot of longer games this year, as you know, and not like a lot of those games. They kind of have the same tone, they have the same stuff throughout. But Split Fiction kind of goes, okay, we see what you did there. We have like a 12-hour campaign. I don't know how long the campaign is, but let's just say it's a 12-hour campaign, and we want to cram as many ideas as we can into this game. There are sections of this game that could be an entire like chapter for a longer game or for another game, like the section where you're jumping across cars. There's an entire game about that. Cluster Truck it was called. Like there's an entire game based on jumping across moving vehicles, right? That in itself is a fun game. But now you have Split Fiction where it's like, okay, well, you're jumping across cars, um, and that like gameplay segment, which could be an entire game, is just like a 5 to 10 minute, thing, and then we move on to the next thing. The other cool thing about this game is there are these like side stories that you go into, like unfinished stories or stories from each character's past that you jump into, and the one was you start off as pigs, and you're just like eating apples and giving apples through the doors to unlock them. And one pig has like a spring ability where it makes them like super long and they can spring up. And the other pig had the ability to just like pass gas and fart and fly forward like a rocket. And they did pretty cool things with that. And the whole section was really colorful, was really fun. And it all culminated with you getting like grinded up into a meat grinder and coming out as wieners on the other side, hot dogs on the other side, and then having to prepare yourself to eat for a picnic. And it was just such like much like the scene in It Takes Two where you rip the elephant to pieces. It kind of had that same kind of idea, but it was more jovial about it. It was a bit more slapstick, and that's kind of the main difference between Split Fiction and It Takes Two as well, is that Split Fiction doesn't really delve into like a serious tone like It Takes Two did. And even when It Takes Two was being less serious, like with the part where you're ripping up the elephant toy, it still felt impactful because this toy was like screaming in pain and begging for its life. And you just kind of felt emotional because it's like, well, am I doing the right thing here? Like, should we be doing this? It's not like I can't do this. And Split Fiction, it doesn't have that nature to it, at least not yet. We've only gotten past like the first story and a half. Like we went through the prologue and the first like chapter or whatever you want to call it, and then we went through the entire first story, and we did both of the side stories. Greedy Waffles and I played it together. And yeah, I mean, it has a great flow to it, and it doesn't seem to be overly serious, even though there are like serious tones and serious moments. It does seem to have it has more of a fixed like, okay, this is a serious moment and this is a goofy moment, or this is a goofy sad, kind of goofy like angry moment, but this is like a goofy like it differentiates those parts of the story, right? Where It Takes Two was like, this kind of seems silly, but it also is super serious and kind of disturbing, right? And I think that works very well for It Takes Two because of the theme of that game. And the one thing that I was worried about with Split Fiction was like, okay, can Split Fiction up the ante? Can it be as crazy as It Takes Two was? Because It Takes Two is already like a crazy idea on its own, with having the two parents be morphed into voodoo dolls, right? But in this case, it's like, well, duh, it can be as interesting and amazing as It Takes Two, because Split Fiction, it's all about going into the stories and messing around in these stories. and anything can happen. You can have trolls attack you. You can have hover cars flying down a speedway and you're jumping across them. You can have a guy with a giant hammer. Like, it has really everything that you want in It Takes Two, but in a package that is not as whimsical, I guess you could say. The two different authors are a bit more serious in their writing, I guess. So I don't know if that makes sense entirely, but in my mind, Split Fiction, even though, yeah, it's been good so far. It's been really good so far. We've been having a lot of fun with it. I think that a lot of people will have fun with it, as long as they have a co-op partner, I guess. And that is like the thing about these games in general. These ones that, I mean, really, it's just this studio doing games that are you need to have two people. But it is nice that it has the friend pass and it's cross-play now and all that stuff. So it keeps up with the times. But still, it can be a bit, I guess, I don't know, annoying for people who maybe they do only play solo, or maybe they don't want to play with other people, or whatever. It could be a bit like annoying to hear so many people praising this game and not be able to play it themselves. Now, of course, you could just pull out a second controller and control both at the same time. I'm sure there's people who've done that on stream. Like, hey, can I beat It Takes Two with only one person? I'm sure that there's people who've done that. It's probably pretty tough because you do need to work together side by side. And they do almost like design some puzzles to just not work with one person, right? It's just such a fast like thing that you need to do. But once again, I mean, I'm sure that there are people who have done it, and I would love to see that. I should probably look up some YouTube videos for that because I think that'd be a pretty funny thing to watch. But in general, Split Fiction, good time. We're really enjoying it. It looks great. It runs good. The only problem that I had was there was this section where the games like desynced a bit, and it appeared that like Greedy or myself wasn't moving, but we actually were, and the camera wasn't following us. So there was a bit of a desync there, and I don't know if that was the game's fault or maybe something happened with my internet or Greedy's internet. I'm not sure. But it was kind of annoying for that section and that section only, and then once we moved on from it, it seemed to go away. So I'm not sure what exactly happened there. Like I said, it could have been any number of things. It could have been EA servers were just not able to handle the load at the moment, and it got fixed real quickly. I don't know. All I do know is that it was, we could still play the game. It was just a bit awkward at times to not have the camera follow you, because the game thinks that one person is standing still or vice versa. But yeah, that is Split Fiction. Enjoyed it a lot, and we'll be continuing to play it. Maybe by next week I'll have it done. We'll have it done, but just enjoying my time. Just enjoying my time. Don't really care how long the game is. Just enjoying what we're doing, and hopefully the next section, which is our first like full-blown fantasy part of the game, it seems, will be just as good as the sci-fi section. So I'll update y'all next episode. I've also been playing, or I finally got around to playing, Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. And I was going into the game, I knew that like I'm not the biggest Yakuza fan or Like a Dragon fan, right? But I do want to get into these games because they seem to be like just kind of geared towards me. They're goofy, they're chaotic. This one has pirates in it, like it just seems like it's my style. But I was apprehensive going into it because I just felt like, yeah, it's still at its core one of these games. And I know for a fact from trying to start several of them that the beginning of these games is just a bit of a slog to get through. And I was sincerely hoping that Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii wasn't going to do that, but it did. And I found myself, I had to kind of force myself to get through like the first 2 hours of the game in order for it to finally open up and give me what I wanted, and that was the game that's advertised. So often you see like the trailers for these games and they look crazy and they're doing all these things with like the pirate battling and the fighting, and there's like tons of characters that you want to meet, and there's like they're doing like these crazy little mini games as well, and it takes too long to get to the point where you can start doing that stuff. And I usually fall off before that. That's what happened with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth last year. It's the same thing that happened with Yakuza 0, the year that we tried to play that on stream. I would still love to try and get back to those games, don't get me wrong. But I mean, at the time, I was just not willing to invest a couple hours of my time into finally getting to the good stuff. I just wish that they would just kind of start you off and be like, okay, get ready, and here we go. But you do have to meander around for a little bit, doing some easy stuff and just kind of learning the basics of the game as you do. I just think that things are incredibly drawn out, especially in this game as well. And I feel like they could do a better job of just getting a bit more snappy with the learning all the different things that the game has to offer, because really it's not that complicated of a game. Like, it's the same controls as any other Like a Dragon or Yakuza games. It's got the switching of systems or switching of styles, much like the other Yakuza games. You beat up thugs in the streets to earn money, much like any other Yakuza game. You purchase food and eat it to restore health. As you combo or take out enemies, your special meter fills, and once it's filled, you can do a special brutal move. You also have another meter that is a super special ability that, I mean, it's all the same from other Yakuza and Like a Dragon games. So I don't know why they need to spend so much time easing you into all the combat when they should just be introducing the new stuff almost right away. Like, hey, you wanted that pirate class? Well, boom, you got that pirate class, and now you can use this pirate class instead of just doing the fist fighting like in the last like 5 games. Um, and the same thing happened with like the pirate ship stuff, where it's like they start you off with like this really basic overview of like, okay, so you have a guy on the cannons and you have some people who can board a ship with you, right? And then they just kind of let you sit on that, and you have like this ship that like is not that great, it's not that fast, it's not that powerful, but it gets the job done. And you gotta go through several more, I'm not gonna say hours, but several more sections of the game before you can finally upgrade your ship, get more crewmates, start doing more open world stuff where you can earn more money so you can buy up new stuff for your ship, and also your character himself. And I just wish that the game jumped into that much quicker. And you might say, well, Yemmy, you gave Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 a 5 out of 5 last week, and that game you said started off really slow. The difference is that Kingdom Come Deliverance was interesting, even if it was starting off a bit slow, and learning those mechanics of the game was a interesting time at least. And I didn't feel like I needed to skip dialogue, or I felt like I was really like just getting into the world and getting immersed into that world. And sure, once it did open up after you lost everything and got stuck in the stocks for a little bit, the first like hour or so of the game is not worthless in my opinion. But and I'm not saying that the opening to Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is also like it's I'm sure I'm not saying that it's worthless in the beginning, but I found myself just getting so bored of all the dialogue, especially at the beginning of this game, because there was nothing happening. You boot up the game, you see an opening cutscene, and then you talk to this little kid for like what's felt like years, and then finally you get to fight one group of enemies, and you go back to talking to this kid, then you follow him to his dad's bar, and you talk to them, and you have a cutscene there, and then you fight another group, and then you have another like text exchange, and it's like, just get me into it, right? I know how good these games can be. Please just get me into it. So I found myself just slamming through the text dialogue for the first couple hours, and I know that that's probably like a big finger waggy moment for a lot of people, but I'm sorry, I gotta give this game the best chance that it can, and I'm really interested in playing the stuff that I want to play. And if that means that I need to skip over a bunch of dialogue that really is like talking in circles or just repeating things that we already know or what we saw in a cutscene, just kind of going over what we saw in a cutscene, I will do that. So I have been spamming that X button at times because there is just so much dialogue to read through. And even like some of the cutscenes have just this roundabout way of talking where it's like it's just mind numbingly boring, and I just find myself also clicking through that. So yeah, I'm not like super crazy about how they start this game up at all. And even now that I'm into the game, I'm like 5 or 6 hours into the game, and now I'm getting to the stuff that I want: bounties and customizing your ship and doing ship battles and being able to customize your crew and doing side missions and main content, all in the open world. Adding friends to your Facebook type thing in the game as well, pretty fun. And doing missions for those people and stuff. I am doing now the fun stuff, but I had to trudge my way through hours. It felt like just hours and hours of dialogue, and it does the same thing that a lot of these games do, where it's like you have a cutscene, something crazy happens, or maybe there's a cool thing that happens at the cutscene, and then you get out of the cutscene and you start just reading text, just blocks of text that the characters are talking between each other, and that's when I start to go, okay, this is getting dull. I'm skipping through it, and sometimes when I'm skipping the lines, it still takes like a minute or two to get through the entire dialogue. It is just so ridiculous. And like I said, I know there's some of you out there who are like screaming to high heaven that I'm skipping dialogue in this game, but for the love of God, I just I just don't care. I just don't care at this point. I'll care more now because I'm into the game and I'm liking what I'm playing now. But those first couple of hours, I was really contemplating dropping the game. And that's what happens with almost every single Yakuza and Like a Dragon game that I play. Those first like couple of hours where they're just kind of like really slowly easing you into the game for no apparent reason other than, well, we gotta build the story to like the first big thing that happens, or oh, we gotta, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. The thing that matters to me is like getting to what I want to play, and if it takes too long, I'm gonna drop it and possibly never pick it up again. So I'm past that point now. Next week, I am sure that I'm going to have a better review for you, or a better impression for you. Not review, because it's definitely going to take me longer to beat this game than possibly even Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But I will come back, and I will give you a more, probably, most likely, more positive feedback for the game. This is my first impressions. Next week will be like a more detailed first impression as I get farther into the game. Right now, though, what I just played today, this afternoon, I pretty much spent my entire time playing this mini game where you deliver food on a bicycle and you try and get the highest score that you can by doing combos on the bicycle and then delivering the food and just doing it as fast as you can and dodging the hazards. And I tried to get every single one of those things to S rank. I couldn't get the last one to S rank yet, but I was having such a blast with that I totally forgot about the rest of the game. And that's kind of how these Like a Dragon and slash Yakuza games go, is you get so immersed in that side content. I was watching someone play a different Like a Dragon game about a year or so ago, maybe even more. And I think it was Yakuza 0 actually. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, there was like this whole side thing with these little stock cars, the things that the cars that ride on the track and they zoom around, you make them go faster or slower with a trigger. There was an entire detailed like upgrade system for your car and part system, and there were several like tournaments to go through, and there was like a whole like niche to it with controlling the car and trying to go as fast as you can while making turns and stuff like that, loop-de-loops. And like it was such an interesting thing to watch, and it took them like I felt like it was like 3 to 4 hours. They were just slamming that mode over and over again because they were so immersed and loving that mode so much. And I feel like this food delivery game or mini game, I felt that. I was like, oh shit. Like, I get it. Like, I get why these games are so revered. And it's because this side content is just, it's so immersive at times. It's so fun at times that you just want to keep doing it over and over and over again. So that was my first taste of that. And even though I didn't spend like 5 hours playing through that, there was a good like hour and a half that I was doing the food delivery stuff. And at the end of it all, you got a treasure chest and you got a new crewmate. So it all worked out in the end. And that is the main thing about the game. Like, sure, you're looking for treasure, you're opening up chests and stuff like that, but you're also gathering crewmates and doing stuff like that. And the main like gist of the game is that you're shipwrecked, you have amnesia, and you're also a Yakuza, and you get saved by this little kid on one of these more remote Hawaiian islands, and you start to gather a crew. You take out the local gang, I guess, and then you start doing more pirate stuff with your crewmates. And it just kind of goes from there. And I thought the little kid was going to be really annoying, and he kind of is at times. But he's fine. You know, he's fine. He has this little pet tiger that he calls a cat, which is pretty cute. I don't really have anything else to say other than I thought the kid was going to be annoying. He's sometimes annoying, but he's not that bad. He's not that bad. You also will point out when there's a place that you can grapple hook up to and find treasure up there. So he's helpful with that. And the combat is getting more intricate as I unlock different things. So, you know, the pirate class starts off with, you just have two swords. You can throw them like a boomerang and they come back to you, right? Then you get some upgrades and you can shoot a pistol now, or you can use the grapple hook to zip to people. And then you unlock more like heat moves, they're called, which is the super special moves, and you unlock more of those. And even like the regular brawler class is pretty fun to use. You use your fists for light attacks, and you use like a little knife for strong attacks, and it's pretty good for stun locking people at times. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the game other than I do apologize that the first part of this first impression, actually most of this first impression, has been pretty negative. Like I said, next week will be a better gauge for how I feel about the game because we'll be past that point of annoyance and we'll be into the point of hopefully just having a blast with it. And like I said, a lot of times I don't get to this point with these games, and I'm seeing why they're so popular, and maybe that means I'll go back and play a couple other ones when I have time. I don't know when I'll have time, but maybe I'll go back and play some other ones. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited to see what the game has next for me. And until then, I'll keep you updated on the Discord, link down in the description below, or if you just want to hang out until next week, I'll talk about it next week too, most likely. Okay, I also played a game called FragPunk, and it's a first-person shooter, free to play. And I kind of didn't like it. It's very slow, and there were people complaining in the review section on Steam that the game used to be a pretty quick-paced like shooter when it was in early access. So I don't know why they would change that up because the slow movement just does not feel good. Also, there is already a game that is very much like this one. Actually, there's two games that I would compare this one to. One of them is Friends vs. Friends, which came out 2 years ago at this point. The other one is Counter-Strike, Counter-Strike 2, or Counter-Strike Global Offensive, whichever one you want to choose. Pick your poison. And they kind of mesh those two ideas together of you have one team trying to plant a bomb, the other team trying to defuse a bomb, and you have the friends versus friends system of activating cards to mess with the other team. Make their heads bigger, give you more ammo, make you walk faster, etc. And this game just does not feel original. It just kind of feels bland, even though like the graphics are fun and the character designs are colorful and fun as well. It just feels very bland to play. It also has a bit of like Valorant mixed in there as well, because you just kind of choose the gun that you want, and then they you choose a character who has some special abilities to them, and then you go. And it was I played 2 or 3 matches. I won all 3, by the way, because I'm so good. But I'm very humble. uh, it just was not speaking to me. I was just bored. I mean, this is coming off of playing Counter-Strike 2 last year. I played a bunch of that. And then also this year and last year I've been playing Call of Duty, and that's a very fast-paced. To go from something like Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which has this amazing movement system, it's very quick and it's really quick time to kill, to FragPunk, which is a very slow and meandering game, more I guess it's more tactical at times, but it is very arcade. It's whiplash essentially. It's very much whiplash, and I just was not into it at all. I didn't give it like a negative score. I just kind of gave it an average score because I felt like there were like the idea was there for sure. Like the cards mixed with a Counter Strike objective, it's there, but it's kind of boring because we've already seen like it's just a mash of 3 different games to get. We've already seen it. And I kind of had the same conversation about Marvel Rivals last year when I played that, where it's just very much like, okay, it's Overwatch with Marvel characters, and that's kind of what it is, and that's fine. I mean, if you like Marvel Rivals, which a lot of people do, I'm not poo-pooing on the game because it is that, but I'm just saying, like, I need something maybe a bit more different to keep myself entertained. And the whole time I was playing FragPunk, I was like, well, I could just download Friends vs. Friends and have like a really fun match of that anytime I want, or I could literally just boot up Counter Strike, or I could just boot up Call of Duty and be fine. I'm not gonna waste any more time on this FragPunk game, and that's what I did. It doesn't really have a lot of game modes. It has like a team deathmatch and this bomb planting mode. Other than that, it's not really much going on. It is nice that you can choose all the characters from the beginning. You don't have to pay for them. Either that or that might just be like a limited time thing. I don't know, but it is nice you can choose pretty much every character from the get-go. There is a battle pass associated with it. It is free to play, so battle pass kind of comes with the territory. I will say that there are a fair amount of currencies in this game. I don't think it's as many as Multiverses, but it's kind of getting there. I think there was like 4 or so different currencies to keep track of, and by the time they were explaining that stuff after my 3rd match, I was like, yeah, I'm uninstalling this, and I did. And maybe in the future, if some friends are playing it and they want me to join them, maybe I'll join them again and have a different experience. But as of right now, I'm just like, yeah, maybe I'm just not the right person to play this, or maybe it is as bland and uninspired as I think it is. It's hard to say because I didn't spend a lot of time with it, but nor was I interested in playing more than just a couple matches. The same thing happened with X Defiant last year. That was another game that was like, I said this over and over again with my review of that. It just felt like Black Ops 4. Like that was it. It was Black Ops 4 to a T. And I was like, I've already played Black Ops 4. I could go back and play Black Ops 4 right now. I'm not going to, but I could. And I would probably have a more fun experience with that than X Defiant's stiff and arcade controls, or FragPunk compared to Counter-Strike, slow and meandering gameplay. So that is that. I don't have anything else to say other than I wouldn't recommend it. But if you like a hero shooter that's kind of slow, maybe this one's for you. I mean, I'm never against people like trying out free-to-play games. This one seems pretty tame, all things considered. But you have so many other free-to-play games that are actually worth your time. I mean, just off the top of my head, you got Marvel Rivals, Apex Legends, Fortnite. Like, all these games offer so much more than what FragPunk does. And honestly, I would probably play X Defiant over this game. Like, FragPunk is not... Like, I think it's mostly the speed of the game. I think that's really what's the barrier to entry for me personally. I like if I'm playing a first person shooter, I like it to be fast and a bit dirty, maybe a bit stinky. You got some stinkiness to it, right? What does that mean? Well, think about it. I don't know. Yeah, I like a fast paced first person shooter that allows you to get a little dirty, get your hands dirty. And FragPunk just didn't seem that way. It seemed too nice and pristine. It was slow, and you wash your hands after every single match because, ooh, you got a little bit of grime on them. It just seemed a bit too pristine for my taste. It just didn't feel great. And that being said, if you want to try it out, it is free, so you can try it out on Steam or wherever else you want to try it out on. I'm not recommending it, but I'm just one person, and obviously everyone's tastes are different. So if you want to try it out, try it out. See if you like it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Not super impressed with it, and I bid it adieu. We finished 2 games on stream this week, and they are Wolfenstein from 2009 and Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. I'm going to start off with Wolfenstein because this game gave me the most frustration, I guess. Well, not really. Not even frustration. Boredom. I just got off of this big conversation about FragPunk and how slow and meandering it is. And Wolfenstein 2009 is kind of the same way. When I say the word Wolfenstein to you, what do you think of? You think of a boomer shooter. You think of like this fast, quick combat. You think of the over-the-top enemies and the over-the-top mechanics and all this crazy stuff going on. Wolfenstein 2009 is much more grounded in a lot of ways. They took out a lot of what makes the Wolfenstein series shine, especially even like the older Wolfenstein games. This game doesn't hold a candle to those ones with campiness and or anything else. Even Return the Castle Wolfenstein, I would gladly go back and play that again because it's much more fun than what Wolfenstein 2009 has to offer. It's just a slow game. It's a cover shooter. It's made by a Call of Duty developer, being Raven Software, which helps on a lot of Call of Duty games. They helmed a couple Call of Duty games themselves, and it feels that way. This game really does feel like Call of Duty Wolfenstein, which is not a good thing. I mean, it could have been a good thing, but it doesn't have that campy nature of a Call of Duty game. This one is very much like, we're being serious. We're serious all the time. That glowing Nazi, that glowing ghost-like Nazi, he's a serious dude. he's not here for jokes. You can't shoot his head off or anything like that, you know. So yeah, I mean there are some moments in this game where it did start to feel like a Wolfenstein game. There was an ending sequence in particular where you're on a Zeppelin and you're fighting through the Zeppelin, and I really felt like that was a Wolfenstein feeling level. But the rest of the game has you running around this town that's kind of war-torn, and the Nazis have taken over, and essentially you're just like trying to fight your way through the city, and it's an open world, which is kind of interesting for this game. But I think it also hurts the game a bit because there's not much you can really do in the open world. It's pretty much just like, okay, I'm going from point A to point B. Maybe I find a collectible or some gold here or there, or maybe I need to go upgrade my weapon by walking halfway across the town here. But there's really not much else to it, and the main missions really aren't that exciting either. Like the first mission was kind of cool because you like blew up something and it caused the gravity to like shift on and off in the area, which was a cool mechanic. But the rest of the game just didn't really feel like it ever reached that level until that Zeppelin level where you're up in the blimp and you're doing stuff in the blimp. Even like the final mission was like not great. The final boss fight was pretty bad. I mean, the boss fight before that was this like shape-shifting demon type thing, and that was way better than the actual final boss of the game. But what are you gonna do? So yeah, I think that this was just like a missed potential kind of game. It has the idea there. I like the upgrade system. I do like the weapons that you use are very much like World War II authentic weapons. No, I shouldn't say that, because half of them are like authentic World War II weapons. The other half are really crazy weapons that you would get in another Wolfenstein game. So I do like the gun selection. I do like that it has some more regular stuff mixed in with the sci-fi stuff. I do like that. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I can't believe that this is still canon in the universe. Like, this technically is canon, and if you want to play through the entire newer Wolfenstein games, technically Wolfenstein 2009 is canon, and it does take place before the New Order, and the New Order does kind of pick up where this game leaves off. It even has the same villain, Death Head in the New Order. He's back. So if you want to see what Death Head was doing before that game, here you go, Wolfenstein 2009. But yeah, the Wolfenstein series had some up and downs here and there. This was definitely more of like a down, even though even though I'm gonna give it like a 3 out of 5 because I think it was an average experience. I know I'm complaining a bit much here. At the end of the day, it was still a decent cover shooter. It was a bit bland, obviously, and the level design was kind of uninspired. But you know, I thought the open world was kind of neat. It just wasn't really as fleshed out as I would like it to be, and the level design, yeah, there were some stinkers in there for sure, just like regular like walk down a hallway shooting enemies kind of things. But yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I'll be putting it in the C tier for sure. But maybe I'll change my mind by that time. No, I think it is a decent like mid average shooter, and we know how good the series can be. Wolfenstein, The New Order, The Old Blood, and Wolfenstein 2, obviously peak of the Wolfenstein series. And the older games also had their charm as well. The original Wolfenstein, the Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which was made in the Half-Life engine, like those games definitely have their place in history as well. So it's unfortunate to see that like they thought that this was going to be the new norm for the series, and luckily it was not. Even though, yeah, the New Order can be a bit cover shooty at times, but it is a much more in your face kind of game than this one. So there you go. And the other thing too is like the special enemies in this game. It's pretty much just like their weakness is bullets. They don't have a special way to really take them down, minus like 1 or 2, and that's also pretty annoying as well. So or bland, it's pretty bland as well. Also, we finished Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. This was one of the first games that I played in the new Early Days collection, and it's the first one that I finished. So this is more of like an RPG-style Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. It follows along the events of the Battle City arc in the original anime, and it does a pretty decent job of being like a self-insert fan fiction of that. You insert yourself into the story and become Yugi. Essentially, you become like the king of games. Instead of it being Yugi, it's you saving the world from Merrick, and various other like Seto Kaiba and Bakura and stuff like that. So I think that this is also a pretty decent Yu-Gi-Oh game. It's obviously much more akin to the original style of Yu-Gi-Oh, even though it's not the most perfect rendition of Yu-Gi-Oh. It is a good first step from the Game Boy games into this one, because the Game Boy games are very basic. It's pretty much just like pit monsters against each other. Whoever's the best monster wins. And there's like some trap cards or some magic cards, but they don't really do much for the game. And in this game, this was the first time that I could think of from the collection that they added in like a back row for your magic cards, and you can have them be on the field and use them effectively. Obviously, it's not perfect, but I think that it works pretty well. The other thing that they added into the game is a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing where light monsters will beat fiend monsters. Fiend monsters will beat dream monsters. Dream monsters will beat shadow monsters. Shadow monsters will beat fairy monsters. Fairy monsters will beat light monsters, no matter what their attack or defense is. And that system of the game screwed me over a couple times. But by the last stream that we did of it, I was really building my deck around those types of things. Now, I was a bit annoyed because I felt like my light-based deck was very good. The only problem is that when you run into a guy who's using shadow monsters, those automatically beat your light monsters no matter what. And it was just kind of annoying. So even though you have like this amazing deck with a bunch of equipables and monsters that can power each other up and whatever, it doesn't matter in the end if you have a 2900 attack petite angel. What matters is if the opponent has a shadow monster, whether it has 0 attack or 100,000 attack, it'll automatically beat anything that you have on your side of the field if it's the wrong type, or it's the type that is weak against it. And I found that a bit annoying throughout the entire game, but by the end of it I was like, oh, I'm using these tactics. I am using these tactics to beat Merrick and beat Yugi and all that stuff. Like, I was using the same tactics that I thought were annoying at the beginning of the game to beat the game. And I realized that, like, yeah, this game isn't around like building the best deck you can. It's more so built around building the deck that can beat the other person's deck without even having to have powerful monsters in your deck. And that's where the deck limit comes from, where you can only have a certain amount of cards and you can only have a certain ranking of cards. Each card has a power level to it, from like 0 to, I think the highest we saw was like 300 something. And if you only have 1,000 points for your deck, then you have to really divide up your time choosing what monster specifically to put in there. And if you want to put maybe a stronger monster in there, you got to sacrifice some cards. But you need to have 40 cards in your deck at all times, so it becomes a bit of like a bit of a critical thinking moment where you're trying to. I really want to put the Celtic Guardian in my deck, but he's worth like 230 points. And I only have like 100 points left, but I still need to put 3 cards in. So you got to find cards that'll fit that narrative or that slot until you upgrade your deck capacity by beating other duelists. And it's not like you get a lot of points for beating other duelists. You do get a good chunk of points from beating like a main duelist in the game, like Joey or Mako Tsunami or whoever, Bones. But it just doesn't seem to go fast enough. By the time that we were fighting Merrick, I felt like I still could use maybe another extra 100 points to my deck total, and I probably could have grinded that out, but God, it would have taken a long time. So even though the Sacred Cards is not like the perfect Yu-Gi-Oh game, it is a good stepping stone in the right direction, and it is very exploitable if you just use the monster weaknesses that I already talked about. I know Reshef of Destruction is the next game in the series, and it is another RPG type game, so we might try that one out. I don't know if the Rock Paper Scissors is in that one as well. I don't think it is, but there you go. And that also begs the question, like, should I play the one Yu-Gi-Oh game that I know is most closely related to Yu-Gi-Oh, which is the 7. It has 7 in the name. I for some reason I can't remember it. I've talked about it so much I can't remember the freaking name. But it's the final game on the collection that you can go to, and it is the most like Yu-Gi-Oh. The monster effects are correct. The magic cards are all correct. There's no like special like, oh, Time Wizard can change Baby Dragon into 1,000-Year Dragon. It's like that. The effect for Time Wizard is correct in this one. So maybe I should just jump to that one and play that one to give us a more authentic Yu-Gi-Oh experience. It's a bit more tougher because the enemies are also using cards that you can also use, meaning that they will use like a Gemini Elf with 1,900 attack. They'll put that in their deck, and they will use that against you almost right away. So it definitely requires more strategy than the Sacred Cards does, or even some of the older Yu-Gi-Oh games. So we'll see what the next Yu-Gi-Oh game I will beat is. I'm still working through a couple of them on the collection. I don't know which one I want to stream next, or if I should stream another one. I guess that'd be up to the audience. The last stream didn't have too many viewers, although it was Saturday. I'm sure people were very busy, but it's one of those things where I do want to play games that I want to play, but I also want to play games that people want to watch. And if people don't want to watch the Yu-Gi-Oh, I might move on from it to something else. I know people were wanting a Red Dead 1 playthrough, so I might do that next. But we'll see what happens. But to close this all off, the Sacred Cards, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It's enjoyable, even though it's a bit annoying at times. I know that I did have a fair amount of criticism, but at the end of the day, it was an enjoyable game. I liked my time with it. I as a gimmick, the rock paper scissors thing as a gimmick for one game, I can deal with it. It wasn't like, it was only annoying when I didn't really know what was going on, and then once I learned what was happening and I was able to lean into those different rock paper scissors elements, then I was able to have more fun with it. Obviously, not that I wasn't having fun with it before, but I was really able to get into it and really start building my deck. And I felt like I had like 2 pretty solid deck designs to my game. I had a light deck and I had a dream deck. I built a dream deck, which I had never done before in my life. And it all worked out pretty nicely, so I can't really complain. But yeah, had fun with it. It'll go in B tier for sure. There are a couple other games that I'm still playing in the background that I don't want to talk about, like Call of Duty and stuff like that. I've talked about that stuff enough. So let's go ahead and move on to what was announced at that game showcase. As I mentioned on the podcast last week, the Nacon event was scheduled for Thursday this past week. And it had some pretty cool things to show off. It started off with a game called Cthulhu: The Cosmic Abyss. This is I'm guessing it's going to be like a third-person horror game, kind of like a sci-fi horror game. And it has some eldritch terror type stuff in there. So you play as this guy who has like bionic implants for fingers and also has some bionic stuff going on with his eye. And it seems like maybe these implants are affecting his brain, or maybe something else has happened. I don't know. But he's seen these visions of like a house and a dark forest, and he's falling through water and his helmet's breaking, and then he wakes up and the AI is like, hey, how you doing there, buddy? And it's kind of a very unnerving thing. There really hasn't been anything like this per se. I mean, at least that I know of, where it's like a eldritch horror type thing mixed with sci-fi horror. So it might be a kind of a cool thing. I guess Returnal kind of did that. Yeah, okay. Returnal did do that a bit. This one is more Cthulhu. I mean, it's in the name, Cthulhu. It is very much more straightforward with its eldritch stuff. So let me read the little press blurb that came along with it. 2053, as the Earth's surface resources dwindle, powerful corporations turn to the uncharted depths of the oceans, unaware of the ancient horror they are about to awaken. You play as Noah, and with the help of Key, your AI companion, you're tasked to investigate a mysterious disappearance of miners in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. But beware, the deeper you descend, the more your mind succumbs to Cthulhu's relentless influence. Will you resist it? So, yeah, I guess it does sound like it almost sounds like a Reaper, like from Mass Effect kind of scenario, where the closer you get to it, the more indoctrinated you can get. I think this will be a kind of an interesting game. It was just a high def like CG cutscene for this one, but it did pique my interest, and we'll see what more about that in the future. There was also a game called The Fading of Nicole Wilson, and this is like a first-person game. I feel like it's kind of maybe inspired by the disappearance of Edith Finch, because that game was also a first-person like kind of exploration kind of game. This one seems to have more of like a devilish occult type thing going on, where the character is like investigating these. I don't. Maybe it's more of like a ghost thing. It's hard to say with the limited amount. I mean, there's something paranormal going on, but there's also like some sort of cult like setup in there as well. In the press blurb, they said, this is a little blurb about the game. Feeling stuck in her backwater hometown, Britt jumps at the chance for a life-changing adventure at a derelict Timberline hotel. Her chance of a quick rise to fame, however, soon turns into a grim investigation as both the living and the dead are hiding dark secrets behind its abandoned walls. Sounds like it's going to be kind of cool. Looks pretty good. I will be interested in that. Yeah, I think that it's... actually, it says to be determined, so not sure when it's going to be coming out, but we'll see in the future as well. A game called Edge of Memories was shown off. This is coming in fall of this year. It's got that anime aesthetic to it, with like the anime color palette and stuff like that. Kind of very colorful. The enemy designs are pretty cool. There's like a monstrous giant head with an eyeball. There's a big mouth with bloats all over it. There's a teeth monster, and stuff like that. In the press blurb, they said an unknown affiliation spreads across Avaris. The corrosion mutates everything it encounters into terrible abominations. The continent's nomadic people do their best to celebrate life in a world where they can only await death. Explore the world as Eileen, a soul whisperer, traveling with her companions. However, it's the discovery of a new power within her that may hold the key to ending the ongoing apocalypse. So the aesthetics of this one not really speaking to me personally, but if you want to check out the trailer, all these trailers are on Nacon's YouTube channel. Raven's Watch. This is like a League of Legends type game. is adding 2 new characters, Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet, the legendary star-crossed lovers, enter the nightmare as a duo hero, bringing a unique and deadly combat style to the battlefield. Will their bond be strong enough to survive the horrors of Revier? So yeah, that's a new update for Raven's Watch. From one R game to another, Rensport. This is a console announcement trailer. So the game was in early access and in open beta mode on PC, and now I believe this is going to be like a 1.0 release on PlayStation and Xbox. So this is a racing game, a simulation racing game with full cross-play capability between all platforms. So you race your cars. I believe you also like design your pit crew or hire people for your pit crew as well. So yeah, kind of cool. That's supposed to be coming to consoles later this year in 2025. It'll have some new features included with the console port as well. I didn't see them be detailed in the trailer itself, but maybe if you've played the game already, you kind of know what you're looking for. RoboCop is back with RoboCop Rogue City Unfinished Business. This is a standalone follow-up to Rogue City, where you will take on the face of the RoboCop once more. It seems like maybe you have some visions of the past. You play as your regular self before you were RoboCop, and you also have moments where you're playing as RoboCop, which is kind of a cool concept there. The only thing that I was hoping for, because this isn't like a full-fledged sequel, it is technically a sequel to the game, but it's also like with it being a standalone DLC, kind of like how Lost Legacy is. I don't think it's going to really change up the formula of the gameplay. The one thing that I thought that the game needed to fix was how underpowered the rest of the weapons felt to your regular pistol. Like you could turn your regular pistol into a killing machine pretty early on. So I was hoping, so maybe they'll do some tweaking with that. In the press release, they said crime doesn't pay, but it doesn't stop the bad guys from trying to stand up to RoboCop. OCP's latest project, Omni Tower, a massive complex building for residents of Old Detroit, has been seized by a group of highly trained mercenaries who shoot first and ask questions never. Rogue City Unfinished Business is coming to Xbox, PlayStation, and PC in summer of 2025. It kind of sounds like the plot of that Dread movie that came out in like 2014 or something like that. Kind of sounds like that. But I guess we'll find out when that hits the shelves in the future. The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. Lots of Eldritch horror games in this showcase, and this is like the third one. This one's kind of interesting. It's a 4-player co-op exploration game where you play as a group of treasure hunters, pirates, as they would be, and you go to this island that is not as it seems. You see visions in the dark of monsters and stuff like that, and you can actually shoot your fellow players if you see a vision and you fire your weapon. It's actually a player. So there's like a sanity meter in there as well, which is pretty cool. So you pretty much like there's some times where you see something and it is an actual monster and you kill it, and everyone else is like, okay, we killed that monster. But then if you go off on your own, or like if something happens and you come across a monster shambling towards you, obviously your first instinct is to shoot, right? But it actually was a fellow player, and now you've just killed them and taken them out of the game. So it's that's a very interesting concept. This is coming in 2025. It seems like a pretty cool idea. I don't know if I'll play this per se, but it does sound like a pretty cool concept at least. And it definitely will have its player base. I'm pretty sure it's kind of like The Forest meets, I don't know, Lost or something like that. It's hard to say, or it's like The Forest meets the Blair Witch Project. I feel like, except with Cthulhu stuff going on. Test Drive Unlimited Season 3 is coming March 19th, which is this month. Discover Season 3 of Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown starting March 19th. Enjoy 2 new game modes, Navigation Race and Convoy Mission. new cars, and numerous quality of life improvements. So this is obviously a game that's been being worked on for quite some time. The graphics look pretty stunning. This is another racing game. Another maybe this one is a bit more arcade, I guess, but arcade in the same way that like Need for Speed Underground is also arcade. Like you still have a bunch of simulation stuff. It's just in a more convenient package for the average player who doesn't want to deal with shifting your car into gear, I guess. But yeah, that's season 3 of Test Drive Unlimited. Another game, another cult, a cultist. This was actually called The Occultist. So there you go. This is a game where you are playing as like a detective who is uncovering things like paranormal things happening within this occult. You accompany Alan Rebels, what a name, on his most terrifying occult investigation yet in this spine-chilling horror experiences. Images are engraved in my mind that would make any man tremble in fear, but I am not just any man. I am the occultist. So it does seem kind of cool where you're solving some mysteries in this like devilish kind of way. Kind of reminds me of like a Sherlock Holmes, maybe like a first-person Sherlock Holmes with more paranormal stuff going on, obviously. But yeah, kind of an interesting time there. The Occultist. Next up was Styx Blades of Greed. This is a follow-up to Styx Shards of Darkness, I believe was the last one. So Styx is a franchise goblin now. He has 3 games. That's a franchise. What does this mean? It means that maybe this one will be better than the other ones. I mean, I know I didn't get to play I haven't played the second one fully yet. I didn't really enjoy the first one. I found the first one to be tedious and annoying. I know that there's some new moves they use in the second one, but they also changed up Styx's character in the second one, making him more like a fourth wall breaking, quippy, Deadpool-esque character. This one they seem to have at least from the trailer that they showed, they seem to pull back on that, which is good. Hopefully this is one I'll because I like Styx as a character. Like I think that Styx as a character is cool. I like the way that he's like his design. I like his design. I don't mind his voice acting. Like I like him as a character. I just didn't really like that first game of his. And we'll see how the second game. I did promise people that I would play the second game on stream, and what better time to play it than before Styx Blades of Greed comes out in fall of 2025. It seems like the new abilities will be quartz related. You hunt for these quartz gems, and they fuel you and give you more power. So that'll be the main thing for that. And then finally, they did a nice 6-minute, I guess more like a 7-minute presentation for Hell Is Us, showing off what the game was really going to be about. I mean, obviously there's combat in the game. You defeat enemies and stuff like that in a third-person fashion with like a little laser sword, I guess you could call it. But the other part of this game is the open world exploration and unguided navigation through these quests. And essentially, you are a bit of a detective, I guess you could say, where you find clues, you interview the people, you try to figure out where to go next, and then of course you link all the stuff you've learned together and try and solve the case. And it's a bit of a daunting thing to me to not have any navigation in the game at all. I mean, I'm sure that things do synchronize and work well together, sure. But it's a bit daunting to me. Maybe there will be like a bit of an assisted mode, but only time will tell on that one. I mean, it's looking good for what it's worth. I think that they did a great job with the graphics, and it seems to be a pretty neat open world that you are going to explore. Pretty bizarre concept for the game. But yeah, you won't have traditional waypoints or markers to help you through the world. So if that sounds cool to you, this might be the game for you. Okay, let's move on to what's in the news. Hot off the heels of Activision's controversy last week talking about using AI in Black Ops 6, they decided to just kind of really shit something out here. 2 games appeared on the app stores and also on several websites. One of them called Crash Bandicoot Brawl, and the other one, Guitar Hero Mobile. Both of these games used AI images to fool people into clicking on the get link, but the get link would just send you to a survey, and you would fill out the survey and say, "Would you be in?" And it would ask, "Would you be interested in this game, this concept of a game?" So yeah, there were actually 3 apps. I apologize: Crash Bandicoot Brawl, Guitar Hero Mobile, and Call of Duty Zombie Defender. And yes, Activision used AI art technology to mock up uh, to mock up like covers and gameplay, and not like gameplay, but pictures of gameplay to make it look like a real game. The Crash Bandicoot one is pretty egregious. I mean, there's like a character morphing into like a flying disc. There's a Crash Bandicoot character that just kind of looks like a giant head of Crash Bandicoot with little stubby arms and legs. There's another character off to the side who is very much AI generated. Like it doesn't look like any character that we know. There's another thing in here which is just a Jeep. It's literally just a Jeep. It's a silver Jeep. No one's in it. It seems to be a playable character in this AI world. But yeah, like the only recognizable character was Crash Bandicoot on this poster or this artwork. So yeah, it came out that all 3 of these games were fake, and when you press the link to download them or get them, it would just send you to a survey to complete, and it would say, "Thank you for your interest. This isn't a real game, but could be." Whoops, hold on. I can't see what it says. It could be. We'd love. It could be. It could be someday. We'd love to have you. We'd love to if you could answer some questions for the short survey, which could help inform the potential future of this game. Your feedback really matters to us. And on Twitter and other places as well, I saw this guy go through all the things. There was like a little video for the Guitar Hero mobile game, which it was pretty basic, all things considered, but it still kind of looked real. And yeah, it has some screenshots of like pressing, kind of like how in back in the day there was like a knockoff Guitar Hero game that you could play, and it kind of was like this where the notes come down, and you press them with your finger when they reach the correct spot. But I mean, the Guitar Hero Mobile is something that I definitely I would probably pick up and play. Like I love the Guitar Hero franchise, and if I mean, now I want, something like this. Now I want it. Now I really want a new Guitar Hero game, right? You're gonna fool me with a fake Crash Bandicoot game and a fake fucking Guitar Hero game. Now you better make one, or I'm gonna be really up in arms. The Crash Bandicoot Brawl game was pitched as a fast-paced round survival game with 30 plus contestants who compete against one another in wacky platforming, puzzle solving, and obstacle courses. Call of Duty Zombie Defender was, I guess, pitched as a top-down tactical mobile defense game where players build defenses and fight off waves of zombies. And then, you know what Guitar Hero Mobile was going to be. It's just a chart that you would play with your fingertips. But yeah, this is kind of egregious to me. Like, this is like beyond annoying. I know that I was apprehensive about like, will Xbox bring back these franchises that we actually want? And the inkling of these franchises coming back, like Crash and Guitar Hero, this inkling, it's fake. And I think that's a really shitty thing for them to do. It's a really shitty thing. And on top of that, to make this artwork and make these concepts with AI, it just is kind of like a slap in the face to the person who's interested. And that would be me. I better go slap myself right now. So yeah, this is just a dirty tactic. It's annoying. It's concerning. It's ridiculous. Any other adjectives? Stupid. It's stupid. It's just very annoying. So yeah, that's that. Another week, another AI schlop Activision bullshit. All right, moving on. Killing Floor 3 has been delayed. Who could have seen this coming? Anyone who played the beta, I guess, the closed beta. I did not know this when I originally was reading through all these comments, but apparently Killing Floor 3, the closed beta that was sent out to select people, was not being received very well. There were things about the game that people weren't liking. The class system, it seemed like maybe the level design was also a bit rushed. So now instead of it being released earlier this year, it's now been delayed until later this year. It could possibly even be booted into next year if it takes that much time. But they put out a message on Twitter saying, "We've made the decision to postpone Killing Floor 3's launch to an undecided date later in 2025. After taking the time to gather and discuss feedback from our recent closed beta, we've realized that we missed the mark. Our goal isn't just to make Killing Floor 3 an ambitious step forward for the franchise, but also to maintain the core experience that you've come to know and love. With the full support of our parent company, Embracer Group, we're working together on a timeline to address many of the common issues players had during the beta, including performance and stability, UI, lighting, and weapon feel. While it's too early to say which fixes will be implemented by launch, we can confirm that an update allowing you to independently select your perk class and characters planned post-release. We look forward to another opportunity to show you a more polished version of Killing Floor 3, and when we're ready to share more details, you will be the first to know. Until then, we thank you for your continued patience and overwhelming support." So, this is one of those games where I feel like if they mess it up, I'm going to be super pissed. Because Killing Floor 1 and 2 are fantastic titles. They're so fun, wave defense kind of games. And it's been a while since Killing Floor 2 came out. I mean, that came out back when I feel like I was still in college at the time, like 9-10 years ago. So I mean, we've been waiting quite a while for Killing Floor 3 to come around, and it's been so exciting to see that they are making a new one, and it's like this really cool this really cool looking game. So I was gonna say there was a VR game. I guess I don't really count that because it was using the same engine as Killing Floor 2, which is in VR, so it doesn't really count, I guess, but. Yeah, I don't mind that they are taking more time to work on the game. It does seem like they're still trying to rush it out the door a little bit, seeing as there's going to be a post-launch update. I don't know if that's going to be a day one update, update, or if it's going to be down the road. I feel like to give this game the best chance they can possibly get, just fix this stuff before it comes out, or delay the game until next year and then work on this stuff, really tweak and fine tune it. You can also do another beta test in that case. If you do delay it to next year, you could do another closed beta, maybe send it out to the same people who were playing it before and see what their reaction is now. I feel like if the game really is struggling, give it the time that it deserves, because I know Killing Floor isn't as popular as Left 4 Dead was, or as name any other wave defender kind of game. It still is a pretty popular, although niche, franchise, and I would really like to see this one be so good that it knocks my socks off, and we play it for years to come. But until then, I do still have high expectations for this, and hopefully they can get it fixed up and working by the end of 2025, and I guess we'll have to wait and see for that. All right, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3+4 is official, and it's coming to PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Xbox Game Pass later this year. It'll launch on the 11th of July. I was very excited. I watched the trailer for this, and I was very hyped about it. They redesigned these parks and stuff like that with the new graphic style, much like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2 Remake. It looked to be the perfect next step for these games. I mean, there's some iconic maps from 3 and 4, Alcatraz, the water park, the fucking the school is also pretty popular. And of course they've added in all the modern Tony Hawk Pro Skater stuff in there, so you could now. I mean, and it's not like 3 and 4 didn't have some of the modern things like reverting into a manual to keep your combo going. It did have all that stuff too. But it's more refined now, I guess you could say. And I was very, very excited. When I first saw this, I was out of my seat. I was like, yes, this looks awesome. There's also going to be a Doom crossover with a digital deluxe edition. So you can skate as the Doomslayer or a Revenant from the game. And then there's also a hoverboard that you could use as well. In-game bonus music, some in-game Doom-themed decks. And also you get some Doom-style Create a Skater apparel as well, so that's pretty cool. I mean, all that is great. There's also a collector's edition that comes with a full-blown Tony Hawk skateboard, which is also pretty cool, not gonna lie. It was all going great. I was hyped. I was excited. And now we're gonna get to why this is in the news section. And that's because they are changing how Pro Skater 4 worked. If you don't know, Pro Skater 4 was the first attempt at Tony Hawk going totally like free roam. You would go into the open world, you would choose like a map, and you would be sent there like Alcatraz or whatever, and you would just do mission objectives at your own pace. You could skate around it as much as you wanted, but there were people who gave you missions like there was like a prisoner trying to escape, and you would have to smash like control consoles to get it, to help him out, or you would do like a manual or whatever on this one section, or you would there was things to do much like a modern like Tony Hawk American Wasteland or Underground, where you would just kind of like do the objectives in the order that you wanted to, and it was a free roam. There was no time limit. There's nothing like that. You would just choose a level. You would be able to skate around it for as long as you want. No time restrictions. No nothing, which is a double negative. But what they decided to do is they essentially cut out no free roam. You have a 2-minute time limit, much like Pro Skater 3, 2, and 1. You have a 2-minute time limit to do objectives, and that's it. I don't know how much of the game that this is going to change. Are they going to take all those characters out who gave you missions? Are they just going to have those missions be objectives, like, or are they adding new things, like adding in, collect the tape or collect skate or whatever? I don't know. Obviously we don't know much right now. But the main thing is that I would much rather just have the original Tony Hawk Pro Skater free roam structure. It's possible that with the engine that they're using to remake this, that they can't just make it a free roam game. I find that to be a bit bullshit. I find that to be bullshit in all honesty, and I don't want to make excuses for them, because that excuse is kind of a bad excuse as is. So it's hard to say exactly why they did this to the game. But then again, I think people are also overreacting a bit. They're saying that they butchered the game and all that. Like, it's not exactly butchered. Like, it's still going to be the same kind of experience. It's just going to be more tailored to like the older style. And maybe they could have just put out Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 as like a DLC add-on for 1+2. And then they could have made a remake for Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 and Underground. Or they could have done Underground 1 and 2 with this game also being available with that pack as well. This does tell me that if they're going to keep remastering these games, we are going to get Underground and Underground 2 on one disc, and then we are going to get like American Wasteland as its own thing, right? Or maybe we'll get like Downhill Jam and Project 9 or whatever on the same disc. The problem is, though, is that I think we've kind of reached our peak here for Tony Hawk games. Like, after Underground, the series did start to go downhill, and I'm not just talking about the Downhill Jam game. I'm talking about like the entire series just kind of took a dip, and it really fell off at Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5. I don't think that they're ever going to remaster all the games up until 5, but it's not. I mean, it is in the realm of possibility, I suppose. I feel like if they are going to do a remaster of Tony Hawk Underground, that's kind of like the tipping point of like, okay, how much nostalgia can we really, really pump out of these people? And with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4, like, these are also very nostalgic games. I mean, countless hours spent in 3. I never did really get around to fully playing 4, but I do know that it is a pretty beloved one in the series. So it is crazy that they are changing up Pro Skater 4. It's putting it into a 2-minute format. Doesn't really seem like a great idea. But like I said, it's possible that it's just a limitation of the engine they're using, which, once again, I don't want to make excuses for them. I'm sure we'll hear the reasoning why in the future. But I just feel like that excuse is just not a good one. It's not a good excuse. Like, you're telling me that you can't tweak your game engine to allow for the player to free roam on a map? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. We'll see if Tony Hawk Underground comes back, Underground 1 and 2. We'll see if American Wasteland comes back as well. I wouldn't hold my breath. And at this point, after that we do get this 3 and 4, like, I'm still excited for 3+4. Like, it's not like I'm going to hate the game at this point. But I would like to see something new in the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. Let's see what they can do now that they have the basics down. They've remade these games. They made them better for the most part, except for 4, obviously. We'll see, and we'll see what they can do with this engine and with what they've done. Or we won't ever see a new Tony Hawk Pro Skater game. We'll just get remakes over and over and over again, which I'll be fine with for the most part. But still, it would be nice to maybe see something new and original from Tony Hawk, especially because the last mainline entry, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5, was so bad. All right, Acclaim is coming back. This old school publisher will be returning from the grave. They will re-enter the market in 2025, and Acclaim is going to take a different approach to business. They will instead primarily provide funding, marketing, and PR support to independent studios looking to break into the industry. Acclaim will also look to restructure and revitalize its beloved portfolio of classic IPs, which could mean anything from the Burnout series to Revolt. Revolt was published by Activision. Also, there's a game that they reference here called Mary Kay and Ashley Sweet 16 License to Drive, which I don't think they'll be bringing back that because that's obviously a very old TV show that I'm sure no one cares about anymore. The new CEO, named Alex Joseph, said, "It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be leading the charge and bringing Acclaim back to the forefront of the game industry. We're fortunate that we have an extremely talented team and that we've already signed some incredible indie titles, which we'll be revealing soon." So that sounds pretty cool. I would love to see them bring back some of these old games that are under the Acclaim banner. Obviously, the ones that are registered to like an IP are not going to come back, but I mean, I would love to see like any of the Burnout games come back on a modern console, or even like the series just get a bit of a fresh. I'm getting tired here. You can tell a fresh coat of paint, and bring back like with a new series, or maybe go the Tony Hawk Pro Skater route and remaster like the third game or the first and second game and see how it goes, and then go from there. So I guess we'll see what they decide to do at the end of it all. But as of right now, cool to see Acclaim coming back. I am nostalgic for Acclaim, obviously. I played a lot of Revolt back in the day, and I still do sometimes boot it up. Very much enjoy that game. And we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what they do. The Until remake developer, Ballistic Moon, silently had some layoffs this past month. Essentially, right now, the studio has effectively closed down. And it seems like most of the staff has been laid off, leaving a skeleton crew behind to maybe focus on some updates for anything that they're working on or had worked on. Ballistic Moon is not owned by Sony. It is an independent developer who was hired by Sony to make this remake. Say what you want about the various things that they changed in the remake. I think that the game itself looks very good, and this is a very talented studio in that regard. But Until Dawn remake wasn't really necessary, and I talked about this last year when the game originally came out, because I feel like that original game is good. Like, that original game still holds up pretty well. Graphics look solid, the character facial expressions look good, the acting, all that, it's good. And this game didn't really improve much of that experience. I mean, obviously with the new lighting effects, new camera angles, maybe a new scene or two that they added in, that did help. Like, I think that the new ending of the game did do a pretty good job. But for the most part, it was really like a remake that immediately was kind of met with like a ho-hum kind of thing, kind of like the Days Gone remake that they recently announced, or remaster. So I think that, I mean, that's obviously why sales for the game probably didn't meet expectations, because it was something that not a lot of people wanted, and a lot of people who maybe would have wanted this already owned Until Dawn, whether it be the free PlayStation Plus version that they put out a long time ago at this point, or they already owned the game like myself. Obviously, I did end up getting the remake because I'm a sucker, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of people passed on it. And I still like can't believe more people weren't upset about that freaking snowball. I ranted about that snowball for such a long time, and they didn't fix it in the main game. Obviously, no one's listening to me, but when a snowball hits you in the face and does not burst in the snow, but it does that in the original game. I mean, what are we doing here? So it's unfortunate that Ballistic Moon has taken a hit. They've had to go through layoffs. It is unfortunate. Hopefully they can get back on their feet and start doing more remasters or remakes, because they did a good job with this one at the end of the day. It's just one of those ones that really didn't need the remake treatment, much like Horizon Zero Dawn and this Days Gone remaster coming out. Finally, for the news today, here are our 2025 World Video Game Hall of Fame nominees. You can actually vote for these yourself on the website, which is www.museumofplay.org. And essentially, we got a list of games here. You can vote for what you want. 3 of the games will be chosen by the public, and 3 of the games will be chosen by the committee. Some of these were from last year as well that just didn't get into the Hall of Fame, I guess. But we'll start this off with Age of Empires from 1997, Angry Birds from 2009, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare from 2007, Defender from 1981, Frogger from the same year, Golden Tee from 1989, Harvest Moon from 1996, Mattel Football from 1977, NBA 2K on the Dreamcast, Quake from 1996, and Tamagotchi from 1996 as well. Interesting selection of games. I can definitely see this year. Did I say GoldenEye 007 as well is nominated? GoldenEye 007 is nominated as well. So yeah, I can definitely see GoldenEye getting in. Angry Birds, Frogger. Come on, like, who doesn't love Frogger? Defender was also a pretty cool game. Quake, obviously, pretty revolutionary. I mean, obviously, GoldenEye was a very revolutionary game too. I'm not sure why Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is on this list still. I mean, I think it was on the list last year too. I don't know. I guess it kind of started the modern first-person shooters love, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting selection of games. Can't go wrong with Age of Empires or Angry Birds or whatever. I mean, say what you want about Angry Birds. It was a game that everyone played, and it certainly left its mark. To this day, they made movies about it. They did crossovers with Star Wars. Like, come on, like, obviously, Angry Birds should be here. I'm not as when they do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. Sometimes I do get a bit why do we have Mariah Carey on the list, right? I understand she's a big act and whatever, but a first time ballot Hall of Famer, should she get in the first year? I don't know. Obviously, it's not my place to judge, but and that's another thing too. I don't mind if there's hip hop or pop or whatever in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think it's all under the envelope of rock, right? It's all everything's subgenres of subgenres of subgenres at this point. It all started with gospel and soul, right? And it went to rhythm and blues and rock. So it makes sense to have these various trees of those in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. Much like with the video game museum, trying to link this back around. All these games have their place in the video game landscape. There's not one game that's more important than the other or more influential. Well, I guess there are some more influential games, sure, but all these games are influential in their own right, and all probably deserve to be here for one reason or the other. And we'll see what wins when the voting is over. All right, let's quickly move over to what's coming soon. Okay, 20 minutes of Assassin's Creed Shadows gameplay was released on PlayStation's YouTube channel, and I believe it was on others as well. If you have not watched this yet, and you are interested in maybe checking out Assassin's Creed Shadows, or maybe you're a bit apprehensive about the game as well, I think this may ease some of your concerns. Obviously, it's not going to be something that everyone's going to immediately love watching, but I feel like the game itself is looking... I mean, call me an Assassin's Creed simp, okay? Call me whatever you want. It's looking good. I mean, I never said that the game looked bad ever. Go back in my times talking about this game. I don't think it's ever looked bad. Like, sure, maybe I did complain about like a facial animation here or there, but like the gameplay itself has never been something that I would say like looked bad. I don't think the graphics look that bad. I don't think the voice acting seems that bad. I like the character designs and stuff like that. Um, I mean, the main complaints about the game came from mostly other people, but I did agree with some of the points, like some of the if the buildings aren't the right time period or a banner isn't the right time period, please, yes, go back and fix that stuff because we should be as historically accurate as we can be, even if it is historical fiction. But they show a bit of the assassin's gameplay, hunting down the target and moving silently along rooftops and through houses. And then they eventually switch over to the other character, Yasuke, who is the more like in your face, like I will stab you to death and I will fight you I don't know if it's honorably or whatever, but yeah, you fight them close up in personal. And that gameplay looked pretty cool too. Like there is like this filter that goes on your character when you're doing certain moves or certain finishing moves, where it kind of it's like an old kabuki kind of thing where it's like black and white with the blood being like this really bright red kind of color. So that looks pretty good. The combat definitely is more akin to what we know from Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey. So you have some special moves and you have parrying and dodging mixed in there as well at times. But yeah, I mean, this game seems ripe for like a co-op kind of game too, because it's like, why couldn't we just like have a Yasuke and have a Naue on the field at the same time? Like, I understand it might break the game a little bit, but just kind of working together to take down someone secretively could be kind of cool. Who knows? But as of right now, you can just kind of switch between the characters, and it seems like you can switch between the characters with a press of a button. You don't have to like reload the entire map or reload the entire area. Also, as usual, Assassin's Creed has the synchronization points for fast travel. It has all the different weapon rarity and stuff like that as well. This person who's playing this game has some pretty high rarity stuff, purple and gold. So they definitely, this is definitely farther in the game than the other scenes that we've seen. But also, I didn't notice this the first time I watched this gameplay. Dismemberment. This one guy gets his arms and head chopped off with the spear. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure the comment section is a toxic hellhole because that's kind of how it's been for Assassin's Creed Shadows this whole time that they've been showing it off. But I will say, like, this looks very good. It looks polished, which is very important to a lot of people, including myself. Like, it does look polished. The open world is decently sized, and I feel like the story, they're saying it's going to be a bit about 40 to 60 hours. That's a pretty good length for a game like this, and I'm sure that you can get lost in the world as well. So my prayer for the game still stands. I will be picking this up on March 20th when it does come out. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed again, but if it does, whatever. And we'll see how it is when it does come out. I mean, it's coming out really soon, and hopefully they do not delay it again. But if need be my guest. Go off, Queen. All right, The Last of Us got its own limited edition controller. This one is obviously it's a PS5 DualSense controller, and it just has some Last of Us fixins on it. It's mostly a black shell with white for the joysticks and the underneath part of the shell as well, which is kind of an interesting aesthetic choice. I don't think they usually change the color of the joysticks too often. Etched into the controller is some decals for the butterflies, or fireflies, the fireflies, and various other things that are in the game. On the back of the controller, it just says The Last of Us, kind of a bland back of the controller, but the front of the controller looks nice, I guess. The triggers for it are also white as well, kind of a sleek design there. I do like the presentation of this one. I don't know if this is one that I would be interested in getting per se, but it is a nice color palette. I think it does look pretty good, and this will be available in limited quantities, starting at $85 on March 14th. You can actually go to PlayStation Direct and start pre-ordering it on March 14th, and they will launch the controller on April 10th. If you want to check that out, so. It's actually the controller launches days after the Last of Us Part 2. I'm sorry, Last of Us Season 2 premieres. It says okay. Let me read this. This pad this controller coincides with the Last of Us Season 2, which premieres on Max a few days later on April 13th. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Also, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered will hit PC the 3rd of April. So they're kind of sneaking it in right between the two big Last of Us things. So that's kind of cool. The Wallace and Gromit Power Wash Simulator DLC is available now. It is available for $8. Not a bad price for a couple new levels, some new skins, and some more fun. This was first revealed in January, I believe, and now it's available now. And you can wash Wallace and Gromit's dining room and kitchen, Wallace and Gromit's Full House, the Knit-O-Matic, Wallace and Gromit's vehicles, and the Moon Rocket. All things that are pretty iconic for the Wallace and Gromit series. These DLCs are available now if you want to check them out. Nothing else to really say. I mean, it looks fine. Like, it looks good. It has some interesting things going on. Like, one of the, obviously Wallace and Gromit, it's all about like the gizmos and stuff like that. So there's some gizmos that like change as you wash them, or if once you clean them, it like flips over and you got something new there. There's like a moving train in the house as well. Like, yeah, seems kind of cool. And like I said, these are iconic things from the movies and the shows. So there you go. Also, that rocket ship is from the VR game that they starred in. I think it was a couple years ago that came out. So that's kind of cool, I guess. I never played that or watched gameplay for it, but whatever. Splunky 2 is getting a free PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S upgrade. This is a free upgrade, so you don't have to worry about rebuying the game. So this is a native PS5 and Xbox Series X update for it. This new version of the game will run at 120 FPS on compatible televisions, which should give you some tighter controls for the game. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty nice update. I don't have a lot to say about this, obviously, but I didn't really play Splunky 2. I played Splunky 1 a little bit, and I wasn't like the biggest Splunky fan. This obviously came out at a time when roguelites were a bit of a, I don't know if it's like a new thing per se, but it was kind of like a newer thing, and I didn't really vibe with it when it came out. I liked the graphic style, I liked the idea of it, but I just never got into it. And the second game seems like more of the same, so I wasn't interested in picking that up. But now that it has a PS5 version, that's cool. Love to see it. And if you're interested in that, you can free of charge. You can just upgrade free of charge. And finally for today, Nintendo has expanded its Switch Online games with 2 more Game Boy titles. And they did it, folks. They finally did it. The game that I've been wanting for so long is finally here. Mario's Picross. This is from 1995. Use logic to reveal mysterious hidden pictures. Help Mario unlock the mystery of Picross. The secrets lie in the numeric codes at the top and on the left side of each window. Decipher these numbers and uncover a hidden picture in every mind-bending puzzle. It will take quick wits with a speedy pace to solve these clues before the clock runs out. Chisel away boxes strategically and reveal the hidden image in record time. But be careful. Every mistake will cost you precious minutes. There are more than 250 brain-bending puzzles to solve in all. That's pretty cool. I've been waiting for Mario Picross on the Game Boy for quite some time. I'm joking. The real big marquee release was Donkey Kong on the Game Boy. This is not just your normal Donkey Kong game from back in the day where you climb some ladders and jump over some barrels. This is a full-fledged prequel to the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, and I've heard that it is fantastic. I've watched a couple videos on it. I'm very interested. I've been very interested in trying this game out, but I've just had no way of playing it because I don't own an original Game Boy. I don't own the cartridge. I think the cartridge is pretty pricey because it is a Nintendo game. It's a pretty sought-after game, so it's pretty pricey. So this is what I'm really excited about. I haven't played it yet. I do want to play it sooner rather than later. But Donkey Kong on the Game Boy is here. I know Callus was pretty excited. He says that he's a whiz at playing this one. And I don't know if he means like he pees on it or something like that. But he seems to be, or maybe he's just good at the game. He's a whiz at it. I don't know. Yes, this is a classic Game Boy game. Donkey Kong has once again kidnapped Pauline Challenged by many perils, Mario must reach his his tower, in order to save the damsel in distress. As Mario makes his way through a series of platforms while jumping over and dodging over obstacles, you also need to gather disappearing keys to unlock doors to hidden rooms. Donkey Kong will stop at nothing to confuse or trap our hero. Help guide Mario as he journeys to the top. Win 10 stages and 100 tricky levels to solve its long trek to the final confrontation. So, pretty cool. Really love that. This is great. I don't know much about Mario's Picross, so I apologize to the Picross fans out there. But Donkey Kong really is the main attraction here for this group, and that it's awesome that they finally brought over this original Donkey Kong Game Boy game. Very excited for that. Very happy about that. Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Really do appreciate that. Let's go ahead and move over to What's That Song?, where you try and guess the song name and the game that song came from. If you know both, let me know in the Discord in the Fair 64 section and type those things out, and I'll give you a super reaction and you'll get the admiration of your peers. Or you can comment below in the YouTube comment section and I'll give you a heart and a congratulations. You can also comment in the Spotify comments as well if you want to. I can't really respond to those, but hey, you'll get some love from, or maybe someone will see it and be like, wow, that was really smart of that person. Let's go ahead and listen to today's song right now. All right, once again, if you know the song name and the game that came from, let me know in the places that I told you. While you're there, why don't you leave a like on this YouTube video if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, you can always come over to the Yemmy the Ferret channel and put a like on it if you want to. I would appreciate that. It does help with the discoverability of the podcast. Also, if you're on Spotify, if you want to rate the podcast out of 5, I would really, really appreciate that. Also, on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review as well. If you want to check out anything else I do, it's all at Yemmy the Ferret, whether it be on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, etc. Always doing things across all those platforms. Twitch, we stream on Twitch Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We're starting up like 2 new games this week, so we'll see what those 2 are. So if you want to tune in on Monday, it'll be a brand new game to play, and it's also going to be a surprise for me because I haven't decided what we're playing yet. If you want to check me out on my other podcast that I do, it's called Film Freaks with a Z on the same YouTube channel. We talk about movies. Latest episode is about The Man Who Knew Too Little. If you want to check that out, that's a bi-weekly podcast. Fair 64 is a weekly show, and I will talk at you all next week. I am Yemmy the Ferret. Have a good rest of your week and a good rest of your day as well. I'll see you next time. So long. The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by Yemmy the Ferret. Small sound clips used throughout the podcast were made by Yemmy the Ferret. The song in the intro and outro is Nightshade by Adhesive Wombat. The Fair 64 logo was made by Player2P2. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions, video game related, are my own. Thank you for listening.